This is my first Reddit post. It may not be dramatic or particularly scary to some people, but I wanted to share this experience anyways. I recently got a job at a hotel downtown from where I live. I've never worked in the hotel industry before, so I had no idea what to expect. The time between applying for the job and being hired was less than 24 hours, which made me nervous, but I had been looking for several months and couldn't find anything, so I thought I'd take a chance. This hotel is about 150 years old and has plenty of character. Behind the front desk, there are places where the wallpaper has torn away, revealing the psychedelic wallpaper from what I can only guess to be in the 1970s. We're talking bright pink, neon green, hookah-induced vision type of wallpaper. The walls in the upper floors are painted bright orange and yellow, and the hallways are narrow enough to give off a shining kind of feel to it, but I'll elaborate on that later. My manager is a young Chinese man in his mid-20s, only 5 years older than me. The man who owns the building is also Chinese, and literally a walking stereotype. The owner is friendly and kind to employees, but he's also rich enough that he doesn't really care if the hotel isn't up to par. I learned recently that he also owns most of the more run-down shopping centers downtown. So this might explain the less than 5-star quality of the hotel. Probably about a 3.5 star, in my opinion. Some people describe the place as a quaint, unique, full of character, while others describe it as outdated or disappointing. As a history enthusiast, I would agree that the place is full of character, but I also think that the owner should be a little more concerned about keeping the place clean. There are lots of problems in this hotel, including mice, broken toilets, fallen ceiling tiles, leaks, and other maintenance nightmares. The fancier rooms on the upper floors have real fireplaces in them, so that adds the risk of fires at the hand of careless guests. Mice are a common problem, and I'm thankful the guests don't have to see all the dusty traps filled with dead rodents in the basement. But by far, the most interesting aspect of the hotel is that it's supposed to be haunted. There are 2 ghosts that have been reported in the building, as well as the adjoining pub next door. Back when the hotel was first built, it had the reputation of being a complete dive. A lady now named Lady Churchill died in the hotel, and her spirit supposedly lingers in the haunted room 49. Guests will occasionally smell her perfume or see her face in the mirror. One of the most frightening stories included someone opening the door only to have Lady Churchill fly at them in fury. On my first day, when my boss toured me around the hotel, he pointed out the haunted room to me. Lady Churchill has also been spotted at the fireplace in the pub, arguing with her boyfriend, the other resident ghost, Brady. Brady was stabbed to death on a basement stairwell. That stairwell is not in use anymore, as it leads from the street directly into the basement. Instead, it's used to store extra chairs and miscellaneous items. The light is never turned on, which adds more of a creepy factor. My shift is the day shift from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Every morning when I come in, I have to check the entire hotel by myself in search of homeless people sleeping in the back stairwell or trying to get in through the basement. I'm not an intimidating person. I'm a short female, not physically fit, and too friendly for my own good. If I did find someone hiding in the hotel, what was I supposed to do about it? I'm not sure which creeps me out more. The fact that I'm going around looking for people who shouldn't be there, or the idea that I have to walk through dark and silent areas known to be haunted all by myself. My sweep of the hotel includes all 4 floors of guest rooms, the kitchen, the back stairwell, the basement stairwell, and the basement. To give you some context, the back stairwell serves as a fire escape, connecting all the floors together. It goes straight down to street level. It's always cold and echoey in there, and as I said before, full of dead mice. When I was first told about the haunted stairway, I mistakenly thought they meant the fire escape stairs as they go down to basement level. But the 4 floors for guest rooms in all their overlook hotel glory are shaped like a square horseshoe. which means more than enough blind corners where creepy twins might suddenly appear. Lady Churchill's haunted room is at the end of the hall, around one of these blind corners, and yes, I do think about that every time I search the hotel. There is an elevator and an interior stairway, the one guests are supposed to use. Behind the elevator is this old connecting hallway that basically serves no purpose anymore. In the past, it may have been useful, but now it just serves as a secret passageway that goes behind the elevator and comes out at the other end of the horseshoe. This hallway especially needs to be searched for homeless people, drunks, or people having sex. The basement is by far the creepiest part of the hotel, though. To get there, you can either take the elevator or go through the pub and down the stairs. I prefer to go through the pub because there are some fascinating black and white photos from when the hotel was first built, and I love to look at them. It's also the best place to see the age of the brick foundation. Anyway, the basement is used for storing beer kegs, firewood planter pots, housekeeping items, and maintenance tools, among other things. It's usually deserted. Now that I know the dark, unused basement stairway is where Brady's spirit is supposed to be, I think I'll try to spend even less time down there. This week is my second week of work, and my boss has put me on the afternoon and evening shift, just so I can get a sense of what it's like in case I have to cover anybody in the future. Yesterday was my first late shift, and in that time I learned a whole bunch of things I didn't want to know from the lady I worked with. This woman, let's call her Peggy, has been at the hotel for 14 years. She's seen all there is to see and is well known for her stories. I've listened to some of these stories, and honestly, part of me thinks she's full of shit. But the other part is going to cautiously believe her on the off chance that it's true. There are some things I learned about the hotel in the span of one shift. 1. The man I'm replacing was not actually fired for chronic lateness, as my boss had told me, but instead for sexual harassment. The head of housekeeping, a man I get along with very well, is a friend of his. 2. The day before, Peggy caught a drug addict rooting around in the private back office after hours. We looked over the security footage, and he was definitely searching for something. We now keep the office doors locked. 3. There were 2 guests several years ago who stayed at the hotel, and the next day they robbed a jewelry store downtown and fled back to the hotel with everything they'd stolen. There was a massive police standoff on the roof, SWAT teams and all. There's a news article about it online. Otherwise, I never would have believed it. And 4. The bedrock of the hotel can be found in the boiler room. There's a slight gap that has been filled in on the top right corner that connects directly to the street. One time Peggy came down to the boiler room to find a man half through the gap head first, trying to get in because he wanted to know what was down there. That image terrifies me. In the span of that one night shift, an alarm went off in the basement, the police showed up at the pub, and a guest verbally abused the day staff over a non-existent shuttle to the hospital. No, not an ambulance, a shuttle. Taking the bus was beneath him, I suppose. And at my bus stop after the shift, a man was shooting up in public. My city has a drug epidemic going on right now. My bus took half an hour to arrive, and when I got off at my stop, it was as foggy as Silent Hill. I felt as though I should be looking around for Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. It is October after all. That's one night shift down. I have another tonight, and one more the day after. If anything else interesting happens, I'll keep you folks posted. I mostly just wanted to get all this off my chest. It's amazing how different the hotel is after 3 p.m. Much louder, that's for sure, thanks to the pub on one side and the bar on the other. Everyone I've gotten to know during my first week of work has already gone home, leaving me with drunks, strangers, and Peggy's crazy stories. One thing's for sure, after 3 nights of this, I'll never complain about getting up early again. I have always been quite adventurous, so it stands to reason that when I had spare time alone, I would hop in my car and go exploring. I especially liked finding old abandoned homes, and there were a lot of them in Colorado. My husband hated the fact that I would do this completely alone, and he was always afraid that I would get into trouble. When I saw a no trespassing sign, it was an invitation, so it's no surprise that I would often be where I wasn't supposed to be. One day, while out driving down old country roads, that I happened upon an old abandoned farmhouse, so I pulled into the driveway. There was no garage or carport, so my car was right in plain sight. This red, old brick farmhouse was all boarded up, but around the side of the house, there was an opening where one of the boards had fallen off, so I scrambled on up and crawled through. I found myself in a front bedroom. Of course, it was rather dark, but there were cracks in the boards that let in just enough light that you could easily maneuver throughout the house without too much difficulty. Imagine my surprise to find everything still in the house untouched. Near as I could tell, it had been empty since sometime in the 60s, so it had been sitting in this condition for at least 20 years. I found this very strange that no kids had gotten inside to party, nor any evidence of a homeless person, especially since the house could be easily seen from I-25, which is a major highway that goes through the heart of Denver, and there was an exit within walking distance to this house. Denver had a very large homeless population, just like all big cities have. The living room had all the furniture, lamps, tables, and the bedrooms all had the armoires and iron beds. Everything left in the kitchen, along with home canned goods, spices, dishes, everything's still there. And the bedroom where I entered, there was a portable toilet, and I wondered if someone had been sick. I got a feeling that was the case. I spent hours in there just looking through pictures and postcards of the family that had lived there. There was a ton of Catholic paraphernalia too. Crucifixes on the walls, rosary beads and the like. It was fascinating to me, and I was trying to figure out why this family had left the house this way. And I was so surprised when I came out how many hours had passed, but I chalked it up to being too involved and losing track of time. I've never worn a watch, so it wasn't hard to believe that this could happen. This place also wasn't too far away from my house, so I would go there as often as I could and wander the grounds, investigating the sheds in the outhouse, the root cellar under the house, which was loaded with old canned goods and rotted root vegetables. The smell, of course, after all this time was non-existent, so really it wasn't unpleasant. I kept wondering what had happened there. I did not know that the family that owned this home lived just around the corner on the same street. How I found out was they caught me there and ran me off. I watched them as they left and saw where they went. Now, when I would go back, I'd look to see if they were home before I'd ever go in. So week after week, month after month, I would go back. There was so much to explore. Time after time, they would catch me there again and again, and always run me off. I always wondered why they never called the police on me, but they never did. I think they knew I was being haunted, although I was not aware of this at the time. Later on, after I had been exploring there for a number of months, I began to find myself there with no recollection as to how or when I had gotten there. But every time I went in, hours and hours would go by, and every time I came out, I was always surprised at how much time had passed. I would think I was in there about 2 hours, but would find at least 6 hours had passed and it was dusk. It would begin to get dark, and I would have to leave because, of course, there was no electricity. I was completely taken over and got it into my mind that I wanted to buy this house, so I talked to my husband about it, never revealing to him that I had been going there. I kept it as a secret from everyone, even my best friend. I did some research and tried to find out anything I could about it. I did find out it was built in 1910, but could get no other information about it. I even tried to talk to the people that owned the house, but they would never tell me anything at all and would just tell me to leave again. I never damaged anything and left everything as it was. I never took anything from that house until one day I was drawn to an old green woven clothes hamper in a very good condition, and since I needed one at home, I took it. No one would miss it, right? Now, I had made a connection. bad move. Soon after I took this hamper, I had a dream. Or was it a dream? A figure in a dark hooded cloak approached me and said, "Can I come into you and finish living out the rest of my life?" I replied, "If you do, then when can I live out the rest of my life?" And the figure disappeared and I woke up. Creepy, huh? I do believe that the hamper was the catalyst for this event. I should not have taken anything. Thou shalt not steal. There's always a reason for his commandments. The next time I went to the house, it had been completely demolished. The house and all of the outbuildings were gone. There was absolutely no trace of anything or that I was ever there. Not a brick, not a board, not even a foundation. The root cellar had been filled in completely. I was devastated and wondered how and why did they do this. The house was safe and could have been sold. I had been going there 2 to 3 times a week, so I don't know how this was all accomplished so quickly. I wonder if the dream came after the destruction, but I had not known when or what they had done, and the hamper made it possible for this spirit to come to me. I kept that hamper for a number of years and was always haunted by whatever had happened there. As long as I held on to it, I could not release myself from the spirit that inhabited that house, although I never had any more dreams. I finally did rid myself of it though, because I knew as long as I hung on to it, I'd never be free. I do not remember how I disposed of it, but it wasn't until then that I was finally released, but this had gone on for years at that point. I'm very much more careful now when and where I go, and will stand outside and take the time to size up the spirit or spirits connected to these old places before entering. Please, if you are out exploring and you find a place like this, do not take anything, as you don't know what you are bringing home. And if you have taken anything from a house like this, get rid of it now. The story happened when I was 17 years old, but before I go on and explain the story, I'd like to give a bit of backstory to this story. So, I started believing in the paranormal when I was about 11 years old. My aunt lived in this weird house where you could just sense that someone or something was in the house with you, especially the basement. As I gradually got older, I always seemed to have experiences wherever I went. I honestly don't know if spirits are attracted to me, or that the spirit that my adopted aunt unleashed while playing with the Ouija board likes to follow me around and taunt me. Either way, no matter where I went, I always had seemed to have paranormal experiences. This particular story isn't scary, but it's really creepy nonetheless. A few years after my parents had separated, we moved to a suburban town in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. It was just my mom, my younger brother, and I. We moved into a townhome with a 3-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, and an unfinished basement. My mother and younger brother had moved in before I did, since we weren't all living together before moving into the townhome, and she painted the living room walls brown, and the lights in the main bathroom upstairs gave off this orangey color. My brother had the room at the end of the hallway, which was pretty small. I had the room right beside the bathroom, and my mom had the room beside my brother's room. My room in particular was the creepiest when I first moved in. I would walk into the room and the whole room just felt heavy and not so welcoming. I had a couple of experiences before this, like my door slowly closing on its own and my brother and his friends and I getting partially possessed by something, but those are different stories for another time. This story in particular is the story that I would like to talk to you guys about, because there's just no explanation as to why it happened. Maybe besides that, I could have hallucinated it all, but once you hear the story, you too will agree that there's no explanation to it. So, like I said, I was 17 years old when this happened. It was late at night, and I was sleeping in my room. My brother was also asleep in his room, and my mother was the only one up watching TV downstairs with our 9-year-old purebred husky named Dakota. I got woken up by this presence of a dog and a light growling noise coming from that area where I could feel the presence. Thinking it was our old dog Dakota, I waved my hand in the air and said, "Not now, Dakota. Not now, Dakota." I could still hear the light growling, so in an annoyed voice, I lifted my head up and looked towards the area I felt the presence in and yelled, "Dakota, not now," only to find that he wasn't there. I looked to my door and saw that it was closed. In confusion, I thought nothing of it other than that I was hallucinating and fell back asleep. Minutes later, I got woken up by the same growling noise, but a bit louder this time. Again, I waved my hand in the air and said, "Not now, Dakota, not now." And again, he kept growling and I yelled, "Not now, Dakota," only to find him not there. I looked at my door in confusion again, still not thinking anything of it other than me just hallucinating again. So, again, I fell back asleep. I then got woken up by this loud bark that filled the room, and I sat up straight in my bed. I looked around in confusion, not knowing where the hell it came from. Feeling kind of creeped out and scared, I got up from my bed and ran downstairs to see our dog Dakota beside my mom on the ground and my mom watching TV. Even though I know he couldn't have been in my room, there was another part of me that thought that my mind was playing tricks on me. So I asked her, "Hey Mom, was Dakota in my room just now?" She looked over at me in confusion. "No, he was down here with me the whole time." I felt really creeped out and confused, and I really didn't want to go back up to my room at this point. But I went back up to my bed, and it didn't take me long before I fell asleep because after I heard the loud bark that filled the room, I felt like a weight that was holding the room down was lifted and it felt lighter. A few years later, while hanging in the same room, this incident happened and I told my younger cousin that lived in that weird house about the creepy and strange night. She told me that it could have been our great-grandmother. I looked at her in confusion and asked her how this could be, and she told me that during the time she had Alzheimer's disease before her death, a year before the incident, that she would make little barking noises, and I looked at her funny and asked her why she would do that. She told me she didn't know, that it was something that she would just do. Well, great-grandma, if that was you that scared whatever the hell that was in my room away, I thank you very much and miss you. If it wasn't, well, I'm glad I got out of there when we did because I don't know how long I'd be able to handle a haunted townhome. Hello everyone. I'm a water treatment plant operator. Been doing this about a decade. I've been the night shift guy my whole career. The nights are normally quiet and can be boring if everything is going to plan. My plant has a few different builds. The oldest is 60 or so years old. The main building I spend a majority of the shift in is only roughly 20 years old. For more backstory of the area, this used to be a booming energized area. This area was littered with railroad tracks and drifters coming and going on the trains of yesterday. Our farms and factories were very bountiful back then. Now that you all understand that, you must also understand that with success in an area, there is also a darkness. From the settling of the area, wars with natives, and even into the 30s and 40s of people being killed in train wrecks and bad business deals, the grounds are laced with a kind of darkness. The silence of the night shift can be eerie all on its own. Lots of bumps and bangs in the dimly lit darkness. On the night I'm now about to speak about, everything started out as normal. I came in around sunset, got the nightly Passover, and began my work. Around midnight, I had to do my rounds around the property while getting the nightly pump numbers. I made my rounds with nothing but a flashlight around the main building. The oldest building is a good walking distance away from the main building. I sat out in the dark, headed for that building. I must also add that we aren't the nicest area of town. However, I'm a big guy and can hold my own. As I made my walk, I got an uneasy feeling. I had gotten them before, but I have a job to do and nothing came out of it. I rounded the corner and unlocked the door. As I did this, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Again, I have a job to do though. I opened the door and there stood nothing. I walked in and proceeded to get my numbers. I turned around to walk to the exit. As I turned to shut the door, I looked up down the hallway to see a woman in pure white looking at me through the other door. I almost jumped out of my boots and pissed myself a little. I fell backwards. As I came back to reality, I once again made eye contact with this entity. As I met her gaze, everything in me said, "Hey, your life is in danger, buddy." Her face distorted and started to shift around. I was now frozen as she shifted into what looked to be an Indian warrior. His eyes were glowing. As I got to my feet, he had shifted into this huge wolf creature. The growls were chilling to say the least. It snarled, then ran towards me. I had no time to even shut the door. I ran as fast as I could, screaming bloody murder. I felt it trying to bite my backside. I got a hold of my pants leg and tore it into shreds. I stumbled and rolled, but somehow managed to come up on my feet. I darted into the main building, and as I shut the door, I felt a hard thud on the other side. I locked the doors and cowered down inside. I could hear the thing casing the building growling and scratching at the walls. I got the courage to look out the window, just to end up face to face with the white lady again. I had the police come and sit with me till the sun came up. No one else has seen the white lady since. It's still quite freaky, but I have a job to do.